The journey through humanity's hidden empire took 7 days, and by the end of it, Captain Rethanol's understanding of the galaxy had been completely transformed. Admiral Tanaka had kept her promise, showing him everything that humanity had built in the shadows, and what he witnessed left him struggling to process the magnitude of human achievement. They visited the Forge World's first massive industrial planets where shipyards stretched across entire continents, constructing vessels of every size and purpose. Workers moved through these facilities with quiet efficiency, building the tools of their species' survival without fanfare or complaint. Rethanol had seen elder species manufacturing centers, and they were nothing compared to this. Humanity had achieved in 150 years what other races had taken millennia to accomplish. "How many ships?" he asked, watching a carrier vessel take shape beneath the arms of construction drones. "How many does your fleet contain?" "Over 3,000 combat-ready warships," Tanaka replied, "with another 2,000 in reserve. Our production capacity doubles every 12 years. The numbers were staggering. If humanity ever chose to fight the Concord openly, they would not be the minor nuisance that the elder species expected. They would be a power capable of reshaping the galactic order. From the Forge Worlds, they traveled to the Haven Stations, enormous orbital habitats that house refugees from across the galaxy. Rathnul walked through corridors where dozens of species lived together, and many of them he did not recognize. When he asked about them, Tanaka's expression grew thoughtful. "Some are survivors of civilizations that the elder species deliberately destroyed," she explained. "Races that grew too powerful, too independent, too threatening to the established order. The Concord erases them from history and claims they never existed. But we found them hiding in the forgotten corners of space, and we offered them shelter." "The elder species would call this treason," Rethanol observed. "The elder species would call it many things," Tanaka agreed. "But we call it justice. No civilization has the right to exterminate another simply for the crime of existing." The final stop was the Library of Echoes, a vast repository built into an asteroid at the edge of explored space. Here, humanity had gathered knowledge from every source they could find, histories that the Concord had suppressed, technologies that had been forbidden, philosophies that challenged the assumptions on which galactic civilization was built. "We do not hoard this knowledge," Tanaka said. "We preserve it. Someday, when the galaxy is ready, we will share everything we have learned. But that day has not yet come." Rethanol understood what she was saying. Humanity was preparing not just for war, but for something greater, a transformation of the entire galactic order, a future where younger species were not controlled, but empowered. It was a vision that frightened him and inspired him in equal measure. Finally, he returned to his ship, the Whisper of Stars, which had been waiting patiently at New Eden. Before he departed, Tanaka brought him to see one more thing, a small medical bay where Maya Reyes lay recovering from the treatment that K3 doctors had provided. The girl's eyes opened as they approached, and she smiled with the innocent joy of a child who did not fully understand how close she had come to death. Her father David sat beside her, his expression haunted by guilt but illuminated by gratitude. Governor Chun had released him after Rethanol's offer of medical assistance, though the question of what to do with him remained unresolved. "Thank you," David said to Rethanol, his voice breaking with emotion. "Thank you for saving my daughter. I know what I did was wrong, and I know I endangered everyone, but I could not watch her die." Rethanol studied the human father with his compound eyes, seeing the love and desperation that had driven him to risk everything. "You made a choice that no parent should have to make," he said finally. "I cannot condemn you for it." He turned to Admiral Tanaka and extended one of his segmented limbs in the K3 gesture of formal agreement. "I have seen what you have built, and I understand why you built it. The question now is what I will tell the Concord." "That is your choice," Tanaka replied, We will not try to influence it. But she had influenced it, Rethanol realized, simply by trusting him with the truth. Every elder species leader he had ever met would have killed to protect a secret this significant. But humanity had chosen a different path. They had gambled on his conscience, and now he had to decide whether that gamble would pay off. 3 days later, Captain Rethanol stood before the assembled Concord Council on the Sar Prime, with Councillor Jiveth and 100 other representatives watching him with intense interest. Ambassador Vance was there too, his expression carefully neutral, though Rethanol could see the tension in his posture. The fate of 2,000 hidden worlds rested on what the Key 3 captain would say next. Captain Rethanol, Councillor Jiveth said, her 4 eyes fixed on him with predatory focus. You ventured into Sector Null 7 following an unusual energy signature. What did you find there? The chamber fell silent. Every being present understood the significance of the question. If Rethanol had discovered evidence of unauthorized human expansion, it would justify immediate action against the species sanctions at minimum, military intervention at worst. Rethanol thought about everything he had seen: the fleet, the colonies, the refugees, the library. He thought about Admiral Tanaka's trust, about Maya Reyes' smile, about the kind of galaxy he wanted his descendants to inherit. And he made his choice. I found nothing of consequence, he announced, his voice clear and steady. Dead worlds, empty space. The humans remain as they have always been: small, quiet, unremarkable. He felt Jiveth's eyes boring into him, searching for deception, but the Kithri were masters of concealment, and he gave her nothing to find. Across the chamber, he saw Ambassador Vance's shoulders relax almost imperceptibly, and in that tiny gesture, he found confirmation that he had made the right choice. The Concord accepted his report as he had known they would. The elder species were arrogant, too certain of their own superiority to imagine that a younger race could deceive them on such a scale. And so humanity's secret remained safe for now. That evening, Rethanol met privately with Ambassador Vance in a garden on the Sar Prime, far from listening ears. The two beings who had participated in the greatest lie in galactic history stood together under alien stars and said nothing for a long time. Thank you, Vance finally said. What you did today protected billions of innocent lives. I did not do it for humanity, Rethanol replied. I did it for the galaxy. The Concord has ruled for too long without challenge, has controlled too much without accountability. Perhaps it is time for something new. He turned to face the human ambassador, and in his compound eyes there was something that might have been the beginning of friendship. When you are ready to step out of the shadows, when humanity finally reveals what it has become, you will need allies. I cannot promise that my species will stand with you, but I can promise that I will. Vance smiled, the first genuine smile he had allowed himself in days. Then, let us hope that day comes soon, because secrets are heavy burdens, and we have been carrying ours for a very long time. Far across the galaxy, Admiral Tanaka stood on the bridge of Phantom 1 and received the news that Rethanol had protected their secret. She allowed herself a moment of relief, then turned her attention back to the endless work of building an empire in the shadows. The age of silence was not over yet, but its end was approaching. Someday soon, humanity would reveal itself to the galaxy, not as the quiet species hiding in a forgotten corner of space, but as a power that had grown beyond all expectations. And when that day came, the stars themselves would tremble. Captain Rethanol stepped out of the shuttle onto what should have been barren wilderness, but his compound eyes immediately detected anomalies that no barren wilderness could explain. The soil beneath his feet showed patterns of cultivation recently concealed. The rocks around him bore tool marks that someone had hastily disguised. And buried just beneath the surface, he could see the geometric outlines of infrastructure that served no natural purpose. "Spread out," he ordered his team. "Document everything you find. Someone has been here, and I want to know who." The K3 landing party moved with scientific precision, scanning and recording every detail. They found footprints that had been swept away but not erased, ventilation shafts that had been camouflaged but not hidden, and power conduits that ran beneath the ground like the veins of some massive sleeping creature. This was not just evidence of habitation. This was evidence of a city deliberately concealed. "Captain," one of his officers called out, "I am detecting a massive heat signature approximately 2 kilometers to the west. The readings are inconsistent with natural geology. They suggest an underground installation of significant size." Rethanel turned toward the indicated direction, his analytical mind assembling pieces of a puzzle that grew more disturbing with each new discovery. If humanity had built a secret colony here, in a region the Concord believed was empty, what else might they have hidden? How many other worlds existed beyond the knowledge of the elder species? And why had they felt the need to hide it all? Before he could order his team to investigate further, the sky above them split open with light. A ship emerged from nowhere, decloaking directly overhead with a flash of energy that made the K3 scramble for cover. It was massive, larger than any vessel Rethanel had ever seen outside of elder species battle fleets, and it bore no markings of any civilization he recognized. For a terrible moment, he thought they were under attack, that some unknown power was about to obliterate his team and his ship and everyone who had witnessed this secret world. But no weapons fired. Instead, a communication beam lanced down from the hovering giant, and a voice spoke in perfect K3. "Captain Rethanel, I am Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the Human Silent Fleet. I mean you no harm. I ask only that you listen before you report what you have found here today." Human. The word struck Rethanel like a physical blow. This massive warship was human. This hidden world was human. Humanity, the quiet species that controlled 12 small colonies in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, had somehow built something that defied everything the Concord believed about them. "I am listening," Rethanel replied, his voice steady despite his shock. "Explain yourself, Admiral." The communication beam shifted, and suddenly holographic images appeared in the air around the landing party. They showed star charts marked with thousands of worlds, shipyards constructing fleets of impossible scale, space stations housing millions of people, and children playing in parks beneath alien suns that the Concord did not know existed. 150 years ago, Admiral Tanaka's voice continued, humanity discovered that the Concord's star maps were lies. The elder species had deliberately erased entire regions of space, keeping them hidden so they could control the expansion of younger races. We were meant to remain forever dependent, forever inferior, forever grateful for whatever scraps we were given. Rethanel watched the images cycle through scene after scene of human civilization spread across the galaxy. Cities rose on world after world, ships launched from hidden docks, and generations of humans lived and died on planets that officially did not exist. It was an achievement that should have been impossible, built by a species that everyone had dismissed as insignificant. "We did not hide because we were afraid of the Concord," Tanaka continued. "We hid because we were afraid of what we might have to become if we were discovered. We did not want war. We wanted freedom, the freedom to grow at our own pace, to make our own choices, to become whatever we were capable of becoming without the limitations imposed by those who saw us as children at best and threats at worst." "You lied to us," Rethanel said, but there was no anger in his voice, only wonder. "For 150 years, you lied to the entire galaxy." "Yes," Tanaka admitted, "and today, I am telling you the truth. Not because we have to, not because you forced us, but because I believe you deserve to know. What you do with this knowledge is your choice, Captain." You can return to the Concorde and report everything you have seen, and we will not stop you. Or you can listen further and understand why we did what we did." It was not the response Reith Anil had expected. He had assumed that anyone hiding such a massive secret would kill to protect it. But here was this human admiral offering him a choice, treating him as an equal rather than an enemy. It was a gesture of trust that he had rarely encountered in his long career, especially from species that had reason to fear the Concorde's judgment. "Show me," he said finally. "Show me what you have built, and let me judge for myself." Over the next several hours, Admiral Tanaka did exactly that. A shuttle carried Reith Anil up to the flagship Phantom 1, where he witnessed technology that rivaled anything the elder species possessed. He saw corridors filled with humans who looked at him with curiosity rather than fear. Laboratories where scientists pursued research that the Concorde had forbidden, and command centers that coordinated activities across an empire of 2,000 worlds. "How is this possible?" Reith Anil asked. "How did you build all of this without anyone knowing?" Tanaka smiled, and there was pride in her expression, but also something deeper, something that looked almost like hope. "We worked together," she said simply. "Every human across every world understood what was at stake. We sacrificed convenience for secrecy, resources for survival, and individual glory for collective achievement. It was not easy, and many paid terrible prices, but we believed that the alternative was worse." She led him to a viewport that looked out over the silent fleet, thousands of ships maintaining position around New Eden, ready to fight if necessary, but not eager for battle. "We do not want war," she repeated, "but we will not accept chains. The galaxy is vast enough for all species to thrive, if only the elder races would allow it." Reith Anil stood at that viewport for a long time, his compound eyes processing the sight of human power displayed before him. He thought about the Concorde, about the elder species who had ruled for millions of years, about the system that kept younger races in permanent subordination. He thought about his duty as a captain, his obligation to report what he had found. And he thought about what kind of galaxy he wanted to live in. "There is a girl," he said finally, "on the surface below. She sent the distress signal that led us here. I am told she's dying. Can you tell me why?" Tanaka's expression grew heavy with sorrow. "Her name is Maya Reyes. She has a genetic condition that our medicine cannot cure. Her father broke protocol trying to save her, and in doing so, he exposed everything we have worked to protect. Kifi medicine could save her," Reith Anil said quietly. "Our genetic technology is centuries ahead of yours." The two commanders looked at each other, human and alien, separated by biology, but united in that moment by something harder to define. Reith Anil had come here expecting to find an empty world, and instead, he had found the greatest secret in galactic history. "Let me save her," he offered, "and perhaps we can discuss what kind of galaxy we both want to build." Captain Reith Anil of the K3 survey vessel Whisper of Stars had explored unknown regions of the galaxy for 40 years. And in all that time, he had never encountered a mystery quite like this one. His ship had followed an unusual energy signature into Sector 07, a region that Concorde maps marked as empty and lifeless, but his instruments were telling him a very different story. "Captain," his science officer chittered, mandibles clicking with excitement. "The third planet in this system shows atmospheric readings inconsistent with natural formation. Nitrogen and oxygen levels suggest terraforming activity within the last 200 years. Reith Anil studied the data with all 6 of his compound eyes, processing information in ways that other species could never match. The K3 were known throughout the galaxy for their analytical minds, their ability to see patterns where others saw chaos. And right now, his pattern recognition abilities were screaming that something was very wrong with this supposedly dead world. "Take us closer," he ordered, and increased sensor sensitivity to maximum. If there is something to find here, we will find it. On the surface below, 12 million humans held their breath. Governor Chun stood in the command bunker beneath Nova Geneva, watching holographic displays that showed every hidden installation on the planet. Green lights indicated successful concealment, and so far almost everything was green. But almost was not good enough when the stakes were this high. "Sir," Sarah Torres reported, her voice tight with tension. "The K3 vessel has entered high orbit. They are conducting detailed sensor sweeps of the northern continent." Chun nodded grimly. The northern continent was where most of New Eden's population lived, where the cities were largest and the infrastructure was densest. If there was anywhere the concealment might fail, it would be there. "Maintain protocol," he ordered, "and pray." In his apartment on the outskirts of Nova Geneva, David Reyes had stopped praying. His daughter Maya lay on the bed beside him, her breathing shallow and labored, her small face pale and drawn. She had hours left, maybe less, and the medicine that could save her was orbiting overhead in an alien ship that did not know she existed. His hands trembled as he reached for the emergency communication device that every citizen of New Eden was required to keep. It was designed for exactly one purpose: to call for help in situations where death was otherwise certain. But using it now, during Ghost Protocol, would send a signal that the K3 would surely detect. "I am sorry," he whispered to the sleeping city, to the millions of people whose lives he was about to endanger. "But she is my daughter, and I cannot watch her die." He pressed the button. Aboard the Whisper of Stars, alarms suddenly blared as a new signal appeared on the communication array. Rathnoli's compound eyes focused instantly on the source, tracking it to a precise location on the planet's surface, a location that should have been empty wilderness. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission on a frequency consistent with human technology. The message appears to be a distress call. Human technology." The words hung in the air like a verdict. Rethanol felt something shift in his understanding of the universe, a fundamental assumption crumbling beneath the weight of evidence. The Concord believed that humanity controlled only 12 small colony worlds in a distant corner of the galaxy. But here was proof of human presence in a region that should have been beyond their reach. "Respond to the signal," Rethanol ordered, "and prepare a landing party. We are going to investigate." In the command bunker, Governor Chan received the worst news of his life. The breach had been detected, the source had been traced, and everything they had worked to protect was now in danger. He stared at the holographic display showing David Reyes' location, and he felt something cold settle into his heart. "Security teams are moving to intercept," Sarah Torres reported. "But the K3 have already locked onto the signal. They know someone is down there." Chun closed his eyes and made the hardest decision of his career. Arrest Reyes and his daughter, move them to a secure location, and activate secondary concealment protocols around his building. If we cannot hide the signal, we will hide the source. "Sir," Torres hesitated, "what about the child?" "Our medical facilities report that she is dying. If we move her now—" "I know," Chun interrupted, and his voice was heavy with grief. "I know what we might be condemning her to. But if the K3 find proof of our existence here, billions of lives across 2,000 worlds will be at risk. I will carry the weight of this choice forever, but I will not sacrifice an empire to save one girl." It was the kind of calculation that leaders had been making since the beginning of time. The terrible arithmetic of lives weighed against lives. Chen had hoped he would never face such a moment, but hope was a luxury that governors of hidden worlds could not afford. Admiral Tanaka received the news of the breach while her fleet was still an hour away from New Eden. She stood on the bridge of Phantom One, surrounded by officers who waited for her orders, as she felt the full weight of command pressing down upon her shoulders. "The survey vessel is launching a landing party," Commander Al-Rashid reported. they will reach the surface within 30 minutes. 30 minutes. That was all the time they had. Tanaka considered her options, each one carrying consequences that would ripple across the galaxy. She could order her fleet to intercept and destroy the Kithri vessel, but that would be an act of war that humanity was not ready to fight. She could arrive too late and watch helplessly as aliens discovered the truth. Or she could try something that no human had ever attempted before. She could trust. "Change of orders," she announced, and her voice carried the steel of absolute determination. "We will not destroy the survey vessel, and we will not arrive too late. We will arrive exactly on time, and we will reveal ourselves deliberately." Her officers stared at her in shock, but she raised a hand to silence their objections. Humanity has hidden in the shadows for 150 years, always afraid of what would happen if we were discovered. But today, we will choose discovery on our own terms. We will show Captain Rethanol what we have built, and we will ask him to decide what kind of galaxy he wants to live in. It was madness, perhaps, but it was also hope. The hope that not all aliens were enemies, that some might understand why humanity had done what they had done, that the truth might be more powerful than any weapon. On the surface of New Eden, security forces reached David Reyes' apartment and found him holding his daughter, tears streaming down his face as he begged them for mercy. They took him into custody as gently as they could, carrying Maya on a medical stretcher, and around them the city remained dark and silent, waiting for judgment to fall from the sky. The Kithri landing party descended through the atmosphere, their shuttle cutting through clouds that should have covered only empty rock. Captain Rethanol watched the sensor readings with growing amazement, seeing heat signatures that vanished too quickly, structural patterns in the wilderness that looked almost like roads, and the faint electromagnetic whisper of a civilization trying desperately to pretend it did not exist. The game was ending, and no one knew yet what would take its place. 150 years before the crisis at New Eden, a young scientist named Dr. Miriam Okonkwo sat alone in her laboratory on Earth, staring at star maps that did not make sense. She had been studying the Concorde's navigation charts for months, comparing them against humanity's own astronomical observations, and what she had found terrified her. "They erased them," she whispered to herself, tracing her finger across vast regions of space that the Concorde maps showed as empty. But they were not empty at all. Humanity's telescopes could see the stars that should have been there, could detect the planets that orbited them, could even measure the atmospheric compositions that suggested habitability. The elder species had not simply failed to explore these regions. They had deliberately hidden them. This discovery would change everything. In those early days after first contact, humanity had been so grateful to join the Galactic Concorde, so eager to take their place among the stars. But Miriam understood now that the Concorde was not what it appeared to be. It was not a community of equals working together for the greater good. It was a system of control, designed to keep younger species dependent on the elders forever. She brought her findings to Earth's leaders in secret, and what followed was the most important decision in human history. They could accept their role as permanent subordinates, grateful for whatever scraps the elder species chose to share, or they could forge their own path through the darkness. The choice was clear, and humanity chose freedom. The first hidden colony was established just 10 years after first contact on a world the Concorde believed did not exist. It was called Hope, and it was built by volunteers who understood they might never return to Earth, who knew they were beginning a project that would take generations to complete. They were pioneers in the truest sense, venturing into territory that powerful forces had deliberately concealed. From Hope came others: Sanctuary, New Dawn, Liberty, and dozens more. Each colony was carefully hidden, protected by stealth technology that humanity developed in secret. Technology that the Concorde had explicitly forbidden younger species from pursuing. But humanity pursued it anyway, because survival sometimes required breaking rules that were designed to ensure your defeat. Now, 150 years later, Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of Phantom 1 and watched a silent fleet mobilize. 3,400 warships were moving through space that officially contained nothing, crewed by men and women who had been born and raised on worlds the galaxy did not know existed. This was humanity's true power, and today it might finally be revealed. Admiral Commander Al-Rashid reported, "The fleet is at 80% readiness. We can reach New Eden's system in 4 hours if we push the engines." Tanaka nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The K3 survey vessel was still 2 hours ahead of them, and Ghost Protocol needed time to work. Everything depended on timing now, and there was no room for error. "Push the engines," she ordered, "and contact intelligence. I want to know everything about the captain of that survey ship, who he is, what he wants, how he thinks. If we have to make difficult decisions today, I want to make them with my eyes open." The information came quickly. Captain Rethanol of the K3 species was a scientist first and a military officer second. He had commanded survey missions for over 40 years, mapping unknown regions of space and cataloging new discoveries. He was known for his curiosity, his attention to detail, and his absolute commitment to the truth. In other words, he was exactly the wrong kind of alien to stumble upon humanity's secret. On New Eden, Governor Chun walked through the streets of Nova Geneva, the planet's capital city, and watched his people disappear. It was a strange and haunting sight, seeing a vibrant metropolis go dark building by building, watching millions of lives pause as if someone had pressed a button to stop time. Children held their parents' hands in silence. Workers abandoned half-finished meals, and the normal sounds of civilization laughter, music, the hum of technology faded into nothing. "Governor," said his aide, a young woman named Sarah Torres, "the orbital platforms report 95% concealment. Surface emissions are within acceptable parameters. From space, we should appear completely lifeless." "Should appear," Chen repeated grimly. "That is not the same as will appear. One mistake, one thermal leak, one electromagnetic burst, and 12 million people are exposed. We need perfection, Sarah, and perfection is not something humans are known for." But they had practiced for this moment, had trained their children from birth to understand the importance of silence. New Eden was one of the most populous hidden colonies, and its people understood the stakes better than anyone. They had built their civilization in the shadow of a lie, and they would protect that lie with everything they had. In the underground shelters, families huddled together in the darkness, whispering prayers and counting minutes. Some held hands, some held weapons, and some simply stared at the ceiling and wondered if this was the day their world would end. They had always known this moment might come, but knowing and experiencing were very different things. One man did not go to the shelters. David Rees stood in his apartment, holding his daughter Maya in his arms and watching her struggle to breathe. She was only 7 years old, and a genetic condition was slowly destroying her lungs. Human medicine had done everything it could, but human medicine was limited to what could be developed in secret, and sometimes secrets cost lives. "Hold on, baby," David whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Please hold on. Daddy will find a way." He knew about the K3 ship in orbit. Everyone knew. But he also knew that K3 medical technology was centuries ahead of humanity's, that they had cured diseases that still killed human children every day. If he could just reach them, if he could just ask for help, maybe Maya could live. The thought was madness, and he knew it. Breaking protocol would endanger millions of people, but threaten everything humanity had built over generations. But he was a father, and his daughter was dying. And in that moment, the weight of the galaxy meant nothing compared to the weight of her small body in his arms. Far away, Ambassador Vance continued to smile and make small talk with alien dignitaries. while inside his mind raced through contingencies and calculations. He had received updates from the Shadow Council, knew that the fleet was moving and Ghost Protocol was active. But he also knew that Counselor Jiveth was watching him with those 4 silver eyes. And she was not the kind to watch without reason. "Tell me, Ambassador," Jiveth said suddenly, "do you ever wonder what your species might have become if you had been discovered by someone other than the Concord? Perhaps by races who would have treated you differently, who would have helped you grow rather than simply managed your existence?" It was a dangerous question, full of implications that Vance could not afford to acknowledge. He smiled and shrugged, playing the role of the simple human who did not understand galactic politics. "We are grateful for what we have," he said, and the lie tasted like ash in his mouth. Jiveth's eyes glittered with something that might have been amusement or might have been understanding. "Yes," she murmured, "I imagine you are. The question is whether what you have is all that you truly possess." She turned and walked away, leaving Vance to wonder just how much she already knew. The grand chamber of the Sar Prime glowed with the light of 1,000 floating crystals, each one representing a member world of the Galactic Concord. And Ambassador Elias Vance stood among them like a shadow among stars. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, unremarkable and forgettable, exactly as humanity intended to appear before alien eyes. Around him, beings of every shape and form moved through the ceremonial hall. The tall and graceful Thalassians with their silver skin and 4 arms gestured elegantly as they spoke, while the insectoid Kithri clicked their mandibles in rapid conversation, and the ancient Verdash floated on anti-gravity platforms, their massive bodies too evolved for walking after millions of years of technological dependence. These were the elder species, the ones who had ruled the galaxy long before humanity had learned to make fire. And they looked at Vance the way one might look at a clever pet, with mild amusement and absolute certainty of their own superiority. "Ambassador Vance," called a melodic voice, and he turned to find Counselor Jiveth approaching. She was Thalassian, her silver features beautiful in a way that felt almost mathematical, and her 4 eyes studied him with an intelligence that made Vance uncomfortable. She was known throughout the Concord as someone who collected secrets the way others collected art, and she had been watching humanity with growing interest for decades now. "Counselor," Vance replied with a polite bow, "what an honor to speak with you at this centennial celebration. Humanity is grateful for 150 years of partnership with the Concord." Jiveth's lips curved into something that might have been a smile, though with Thalassians one could never be certain. "Partnership," she repeated, tasting the word as if it amused her. "Yes, I suppose that is what we call it. Tell me, Ambassador, how do your 12 little colony worlds fare in that distant corner of space we have so generously allowed you to inhabit?" 12 worlds. That was what the Concord believed, and that was exactly what humanity needed them to believe. In truth, the number was closer to 2,000, spread across regions of space that the elder species had deliberately erased from their own maps. But Jiveth did not need to know this, and neither did anyone else in this glittering chamber of lies. "We are content," Vance answered smoothly. "Humanity asks for nothing more than what we have been given." Before Jiveth could respond, Vance felt his personal communicator vibrate against his wrist. It was a sensation he had been trained to hide, and he did so perfectly. But his heart began to race because this particular vibration pattern meant only one thing: a message from Earth's Shadow Council, the secret governing body that truly directed humanity's destiny among the stars. He excused himself with practiced grace, making his way through the crowd toward a private alcove where he could read the encrypted transmission. The message was short, but its implications made his blood run cold. "Concord survey vessel has jumped into Sector Null 7. They are approaching New Eden. Protocol Veil is being considered. Await instructions. New Eden. The name echoed in Vance's mind like a thunderclap. It was one of humanity's largest hidden colonies, home to 12 million people who had built a civilization in what the Concord believed was empty space. If the survey vessel discovered the truth, everything humanity had worked for over the past century and a half would come crashing down around them. Vance took a deep breath and composed himself. Panic was a luxury he could not afford, and there was work to be done. He needed to buy time, to create distractions, to give the silent fleet a chance to respond before alien eyes witnessed what they were never meant to see. Thousands of light years away, Admiral Yuki Tanaka received the same message aboard her flagship, the carrier vessel known only as Phantom 1. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many hard choices, and she commanded the most powerful military force in the galaxy, a force that officially did not exist. The Silent Fleet numbered over 3,000 warships, built in hidden shipyards on worlds that appeared on no Concord star chart. For generations, humanity had constructed this armada in secret, preparing for a day they hoped would never come, but knew eventually must. Today might be that day. "Admiral," said her executive officer, Commander Hassan al-Rashed, "the survey vessel is a Kithri science ship, the Whisper of Stars. It jumped into Null 7 following an unusual energy signature that our stealth satellites failed to mask. They will reach New Eden system within 6 standard hours." Tanaka studied the holographic display before her, watching the tiny dot that represented the alien vessel moving ever closer to humanity's secret. She had trained for this moment her entire career, but training and reality were very different things. "Contact Governor Chun on New Eden," she ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of what was happening. "Tell him to activate Ghost Protocol immediately. Every city, every installation, every sign of human presence must vanish before that ship arrives. And prepare the fleet to move." On New Eden, Governor Marcus Chun received the Admiral's message with grim determination. He was a large man with kind eyes that now held nothing but steel, and he understood what was being asked of him. 12 million people would need to disappear. The Ghost Protocol was something every hidden colony practiced, a terrifying exercise in making an entire civilization hold its breath. Factories would go dark, cities would power down, vehicles would stop moving, and the advanced cloaking technology that protected their world would engage at full power. From orbit, New Eden would appear as nothing more than a barren rock, lifeless and uninteresting. "Sound the alert," Chun commanded, "and pray that our people remember their training." Across the planet, sirens began to wail, and 12 million humans stopped whatever they were doing. Children were pulled from schools, workers abandoned their posts, and families gathered in underground shelters designed for exactly this purpose. They had drilled for this moment countless times, but drills were not real, and now reality was descending from the stars with alien eyes. Back on the Sar Prime, Ambassador Vance returned to the celebration with a smile fixed firmly on his face. Counselor Giveth was waiting for him, and there was something in her expression that suggested she knew more than she should. "You seem troubled, Ambassador," she observed. "Is everything well with your people?" "Everything is perfect," Vance lied, and in that moment he understood that the game humanity had been playing for 150 years was about to become far more dangerous. Somewhere in the depths of space, a single ship was threatening to unravel the greatest secret in galactic history, and all he could do was stand here and smile while his species fought to remain invisible. The crystals above continued to glow, beautiful and cold, and Vance wondered how long they would shine before the truth finally came to light. Humanity had built an empire in the shadows, but shadows could not last forever, and when they finally faded, the galaxy would never be the same. He raised his glass in a toast to the Concord, to peace and partnership, and all the pretty lies that kept civilization running. And somewhere in his heart, he prepared for war.